Hi, Justin.
Hey, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Well, thanks.
Great to
Nice
see you.
to
Such a long time, no?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I saw you was at Cabrillo.
Oh,
Would that does that make sense?
yeah, totally. That would probably have been 2008.
That's fair. Fair.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for being here, for joining this UMICHile conversations that I call. And again, just for the idea to reconnect with all my friends from the University of Michigan. And I'm so happy that you say yes and that you're being part of it.
Thanks for do it. It was a really awesome idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, I usually, Justin, like to start this conversation by asking everyone where they are from and how music came into your life. So if you can share that a little bit with us.
Sure. I was born in Colorado, and my family are farmers, so we lived just slightly outside of Denver. Um, my so I mean, music was like always there in my family. Um, my mom grew up playing piano and played at church, and my dad sang at church. They both had like music education degrees, although they both had very flexible careers. Um, so I got a violin for like my third birthday. I started taking violin lessons a couple months, 2 months after my third birthday. But the fun story is that my violin teacher was my mom's piano teacher when she was growing up
Wow.
in the town, and her daughter um, was a violinist, is a violinist, and so my first violin teacher's daughter and her husband were um, really instrumental in bringing Suzuki method to at least the Colorado area, but I think they were pretty helpful in that. So after my first teacher retired, I went and studied with her daughter, and then moved on to her son-in-law, who was a violin professor at University of Denver.
Wow. So you started very young, no? 3 years old?
I did,
Oh,
yeah.
so cute. Yeah.
So
Uh,
I mean, some people, I mean, really wanted to play, and I think in my situation, it was just, it wasn't even like a choice, but it
mm,
wasn't bad. It was just, it was always there. And so when I got my violin, and my mom practiced at the piano for me, and I would, even in those early years, I remember playing, for my grandma and my great grandma. And it was just, you learn your ABCs, you learn your numbers, you learn how to hold a little tiny fiddle under your chin.
that's
It was
that's great. That's
yeah.
fabulous. Uh, no, just thinking about education, like an integral education, and music is such a big part of it. No, even if you at some point decide not to be a musician, how important it is, no,
Yeah.
to yeah.
I I mean, I think it just the the way your brain has to work, the way you have to analyze and
Mm.
critique, but also invest. You have to be creative in the process. I think is really great for your mind. And um, yeah, with students, I don't care if they choose to make it a career. I just care that they enjoy doing it and want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have siblings?
I have three.
You
They're all
have
young.
three. And did they study music also?
They all did.
Yeah.
One has a cello performance degree, undergrad degree, although he doesn't do that anymore, but still, plays at church. And the others played violin, and my sister, the youngest, played some piano, maybe some other things, but they also really all loved sports. So that's more by high school, they were all like very involved in sports.
Well, that's something also that unifies, no, even families or societies. I'm thinking about Chile also with soccer, no? It's so popular to play soccer as in a very young age, no? So I wish all of these elements could come together, no? So you can have a like an ideal education, no? Where you can relate with beauty, you can relate with creation, with being creative, and at the same time to have consciousness about your body. And it's such a big issue too, no?
I mean, it's totally ideal.
Yeah.
But the question is, is it possible to achieve that on a wide scale, on a large scale? And how would that, happen? And then also, I also feel like everybody has slightly different needs, or like, even if you take violin lessons, for instance, somebody will need more help doing something or not like it as much as others. So it's like there's this individual dilemma sometimes. But I think when it all stems from love and wanting to help your fellow human, I think that's the basis for good education.
Yeah, I agree. So Justin, after you were 9 years old, 10 years old, what happened with you and the violin?
Let's see. So by that age, I had been studying with the DU professor, and I got into youth orchestra just shortly before I turned 10. And I thought it was the most awesome thing to see a bunch of other people, especially slightly older, mostly, do this thing that I loved. I mean, I grew up listening to records of music and and some Suzuki camps, which were always fun, but it was really cool to see that. And so in high school, then I decided some like more serious music camps were necessary. And so I applied to Encore in Ohio and to Aspen because it was in the backyard and I didn't know any better, and chose and that was really like a game changer. Just I think because there it's like everybody goes there that is working in the music business, at least as soloists or performers. It was like a really huge experience. And in the 90s, it was a very large student body. You probably remember because that's where I met you.
Yeah.
But I also, when I was there, someone recommended playing for Victoria Chang, who is a viola professor at Peabody now, but who lived part-time in Denver during that era. And I had a lesson with her, and it was like life-changing. It was totally, it just wowed me. It was, I had never, how she approached everything being a total package, a total holistic concept of how to make music, how your body is music, how your mind is music, and how everything has a place and there's a very logical way to achieve sort of all the strong feelings you have about you want to be passionate, you want to be, but like there's like literally a really patient, simple, holistic way to get to like a really crystallized realization of that. It was like I don't think without that type of, I think going to college I still would have done but it would have been a very, very different experience. And just sort of latched me onto some seriously good foundation. And she recommended that I audition with Donald Weilerstein for undergrad, Paul Cantor, and Kathy Winkler. So I did. And I met Paul the second summer at Aspen. I was like, yep, this works. This is really thoughtful teaching, so.
Great. So it was a little bit like it happened to me. Actually, I had a masterclass with Robert McDuffie while I was a student at Georgia. No, I was telling you this, and after we finished the masterclass, I asked him, who he suggested for me to continue my studies. I was doing my bachelor's in Georgia, so I was thinking about my master's, and then he gave me two names. Actually, it was Robert Lipset and Paul Cantor. And I just happened to apply for Aspen that summer. And so I met Paul Cantor and I continued with him. So tell me about your experience at University of Michigan, which is where we actually spend so much time together, Could you tell me what it was Michigan, or what it is Michigan for you still? As a violinist and as a musician, as a human being,
I mean, I loved it there. And I think, up front, the biggest thing was you had so much room to experience so many things. And it was encouraged, from Paul and from other people on the faculty that you just soak up everything you can from an academic and cultural experience. So when I went, I was on the young side because Vicky was leaving Colorado and I was ready to leave. So I felt a little bit young, and I also felt a little bit shy about most social situations because I had been that way in high school, and I latched on, I think, to playing music because it was so powerful and moving and effective, and it could be very authentic. So it was a big place, and I was very worried about succeeding. But the best thing about, well, not the best thing, but in this context, the best thing was that the second I got there, everyone loved the same things. Everyone valued the same things, like trying to play music lovingly and beautifully and as thoughtful as possible. And also everyone liked, everybody else. To a certain degree, there was just sort of like a default accepting of everybody, and it was amazing to me. I loved it, and so it was just like a really big awakening. I was a baby. I was like barely 18, not even 18 when I started, and but also, it was. I just loved how big the place, how big the university was, and how many things you could go experience. That was, the internet was fairly new. Nothing was quite so easily at our fingertips, You're in person, right? You had to go see concerts, and that was great.
Yeah, something that I so much agree with you is the fact that I felt that something that I think it was just fantastic was the fact that everybody played so differently, no? Like, and I just love that it was not like a machine of young musicians, It was like,
right.
oh, you can hear, oh, this is Justin practicing, or this is, you know, Kirsten, or who, you know, it was just so great to realize that. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's really true, especially if you looked maybe at other schools churning players out that did make them all sound the same.
Mm.
Um, it is like an interesting question. Like when you enter a place, like is the purpose of the place um, to completely transform you, or to just make what you do the best, the most optimum thing that you could be? Um, it was good. It was really good, and it was a good 4 years for me. And then, you know, after that, I went to Rice, and it was a really good contrast in that there wasn't such an open-ended, accepting, loving situation. There were expectations, and you know, like I couldn't like bat my eyes and smile and get away with something. Like there was like a consequence if you didn't maintain your self-discipline, which I didn't really have by the end of Michigan, because it was so, like you say, it was just so wonderful, and there was so many things to do all the time. But it was a good, you know, both of those schools experiences were so complimentary for me. And I learned, I think, the tools I gained at Michigan as a younger person were easily plugged in to like getting like real about life, and figuring out how to become financially viable, like just like be able to have a living playing violin, and not just loving the, you know, the Mozart sonata cycle just for the sake of it.
Fabulous. Justin,
Mm,
when you went to Rice, you studied with Kathleen Winkler?
I did.
Okay, yeah. You know, I met her here in Chile. He came when I was very young. Maybe I was 14 or 15.
Which
And
she was
she
a
came,
was she a musical ambassador or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah. And it's so amazing how the world like works, no? And
It's
then
very
I remember her then in the United States, that I met her somehow. I don't remember the situation, but it just it's incredible how this moves, no?
mm.
Um, so then after Rice University, what happened?
Well, I actually took 2 years off in between
Uh-huh.
the degrees. And I also think that was like really good for me to just realize, oh, this is what life is like when you're not protected in a wonderful, loving school environment. Um, but I was subbing a lot of places, and like, you know, we did Iris together with a ton of Michigan
Mhm.
kids. But I was subbing Colorado Symphony. Um, I think, you know, you can tell me, I think for string players, sometimes when we're growing up and involved in music education, there's um, a little deficit in the seriousness or observing the validity of orchestral life. Like
Mhm.
all you want to do is play concertos, and you want to be soloists, and maybe you like a string quartet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree. Yeah.
and certainly, you know, my family, who didn't have that musical background, those parameters, we didn't go hear a ton of orchestral concerts, and when we did, they were kind of like on the fluffy light side, or just for a very specific soloist. And I think I had a slight like aversion to playing in orchestra, because I didn't really understand really intimately how special, like making music with a community, how special that could really be. But also, yeah, so that's sort of what I was learning in that process, and having some really great, nice musical experiences in orchestra, and realizing, okay, well, I do want to pay bills and have health insurance, and you know, feel secure. And I do, I mean, you know, can't beat a Mahler 6 or an Alpine Symphony or a Matisse Mahler or Brandenburg cycle. I need to learn how to win an audition, which is, you know, in hindsight, it's super similar to preparing for like a major international concerto competition, except it's with excerpts, because every note matters, you know, and the way you have to think about that, preparing for those 5 minutes, is very demanding. And it's literally, I believe, a super similar situation to a competition. So I ended up studying with Miss Winkler at Music Academy, and it felt great. And literally I hit the ground running at Rice, working towards I actually had to play a concerto in England that I had committed to, but then I used that concerto for my audition concerto. And there was a learning curve about how serious I needed to take all preparation, and that you cannot, you can't just like sashay onto the stage and charm them with some fun musical idea, but like have like some glitches or whatever. I mean, it's literally a very scientific 5 minutes of playing, I think. So I took some auditions. It was a little bit embarrassing. Then you just keep working. And, I mean, I think one thing that was really helpful that you don't have once you're out of school is like the regularity of accountability, the regularity of lessons, the ability to play for people in your studio. What I really liked about Rice was like, you could go in to somebody's room and say, I just need to play that horrible run on the 6th line of Don Juan, and nail it, and then leave, or get like a comment like, well, your elbow isn't high enough or whatever. So I was nearing the end of Rice, and then I was advancing some places, and then one assistant concertmaster of Colorado Symphony, which was fun to be at home and to be playing in that orchestra where I had subbed a little bit, but also, when I was 9 and I think 11, I had played concertos with them in their education concerts. And so it felt like, a bunch of aunts and uncles. And there wasn't really like an awkward social and musical getting to know you situation. And then after that, I worked there for 2 years, kept auditioning, and then I won assistant concertmaster here in Atlanta Symphony. And I've been here ever since. About 4 years ago, I won an associate concertmaster spot here.
So it's interesting to hear you, Justin, and remembering my times also with the violin. No, of course I still play violin. It's not that I have left it in the side. No, to the contrary. But thinking about what you said, no, like when we're young, or I have to only talk about my own experience. That yes, I wanted to play solo. I wanted to do chamber music, and probably my dream job will be to play in a string quartet, no? And many times, yes, playing orchestra, I don't know if I want to play in orchestra, no? But yes, we at the end, we realized that all music matters, no? And it's up to us in our vision to put the importance on the notes finally, no? I mean, our experience depends totally on our own perception and attitude, no?
You're
So,
100% right. I love that you said.
So it was so amazing for me also to realize that, and actually I think I did realize that while I was at Michigan, because I moved from Chile to the United States because I wanted to play, no? I want and then you start realizing and you look around and somehow you compare yourself in a way too, no? In a healthy way, but it's good. It's good to realize and so when I was at Michigan and playing in the orchestra there, for my own experience, for me was the best orchestra I have ever played in my life, no?
Yeah.
so I realized that that it was something that I could do, no?
Yeah.
So yeah, and for me it was important, my attitude, towards the situation, no?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's amazing. And as you said, no, I mean, like the attitude in everything we do in life at the end is the most important thing, no?
Yeah. Yeah. Everything. I mean, and I think the real growing up happened here in Atlanta for me, but everything is a choice in your life. And I kind of didn't believe it when I was younger. Like, good intonation is a choice, and I was like, really? But you choose how to practice and how to think about intonation, right? And happiness is a choice in a lot of ways. Like, do you wait for external factors to make you happy, or do you think? And this is, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, obviously. I think, do you wait for that, or do you create happiness and recognize or create value in what you have in your life and what you do in your life? And I also think sometimes when we are insecure or scared, it's harder to choose things. And I do, one regret is feeling, the most important thing, and I tell my students who graduate and go play music is, I nothing matters except that you work your hardest and do your best. Like, you don't have to prove anything, and you don't have to, don't ever look down on someone else because they're at a different level, and don't look down on yourself because someone else is at a higher level. I think that was really important, and I wish I learned that sooner. Because even though maybe I think I was basically sweet at Michigan, I also was pretty susceptible to feeling a little bit unhealthy and comparing and contrasting and maybe judging. But yeah, the important thing is every sound is a sound. So if you choose to love it, whether it's in in a Beethoven sonata or a Tchaikovsky symphony or a brand new piece by someone who is trying to find their voice as a composer, like, sound is sound, and it's really important and really beneficial to choose to love it and to make it as special and high quality as possible. And that's just that was like a nice thing to realize, before I got gray hair.
Justin, I would love for you if you can share with us, following this topic about playing in orchestra, Not that I'm sure many times as musicians in an orchestra, one could feel that I'm not being creative, or I want to be more creative and I don't have the opportunity. No, how do you manage that in your life, from being in orchestra musician, and how do you, yeah, how do you manage that in the sense of keeping and staying creative in your process?
Yeah, that's a super fantastic question, because I feel like that is an ongoing and ever evolving pendulum swinging process for me. You know, the funny thing about the structure of orchestras is, you know, very few are actually endowed with the authority to make creative calls. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The music director has virtually most of that authority. The artistic planner or artistic vice president, or you know, whatever the title is, the person administratively that works with the conductor to make programming choices, hiring choices, they also have an incredible amount of that authority, capacity. And then principal players do, inside of rehearsal situations, when the goal is to improve everything throughout the week, or whatever the cycle is. And principal players, when they have solos, woodwind and brass players especially, have a lot of artistic say in their solos, right? But it's hard when you're a section player to continuously feel that at work. And I think the question needs honest and continuous asking, especially from the people who are in authority. I realized here, sometimes, you know, it's not inside of orchestra, when it's not your job to say, this has to be tighter, this ensemble is horrible, or you're coming in late, or you're too loud for the violas, or gosh guys, that shift is disgusting. You know, like when it's not your job to say those things, you know, but you know it's there. Sometimes the thing that I have found such satisfaction in is, it's not about me saying that, but it's, what can I do as a player in a role like a second chair or third chair, or, you know, if it's a, you know, how can I make this experience better for the people around me? And what can I do to serve the dilemma, and not make it worse? This, inside the day-to-day situation, is how I view everything, because if not, I'm just frustrated unnecessarily, kind of selfishly, all of the time. So but I do think that at a certain point in the history of standard orchestral organizations, it would be of great benefit for there to be more buy-in artistically and creatively from musicians. And because I think we know better than, you know, managers, in a lot of ways, what feels good, what satisfies that soul longing when you hear music. And it's great. It literally is great to sometimes go and just sit in a concert and listen to Beethoven 5. But there's also a lot to be said about creating experiences that are more kinetic and synergistic, and also speak to communities or have relevance to current events, or to people, not just besides the people who just normally buy tickets. And I mean, I think this summer was like a super wake up call, asking for more deep thought. Did that answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Of course, Justin. And before we keep going, Kearney Libauer is with us. Hey, both of you. Becky Anso says hello. Vivian, hi,
Vivian.
Justin. She says. Tom Landshut, hi, Justin.
Hey.
So many of our friends, peers from Michigan are watching us. So thank you everyone for being with us. Justin, I'm curious from the conducting perspective. What does it happen to you personally, or maybe to the orchestra? I'm curious if it comes a conductor and does things completely different from what you're used to it. What is the reaction of the orchestra? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I work in Atlanta like virtually exclusively for orchestra, except in summertime, so I can only speak to here. I think there are a number of different ways that we react to that, and I honestly, like right now we're going through a music director search to replace Robert Spano, and a lot of discussion is what is going to change with the new person, and how can we be more ready for it. The thing is, when you play with the same 80 to 90 people every week, and you play Beethoven 5 and Tchaikovsky 6 and Lemaire, like Don Juan, when you play them with the same people over and over and over, it's like, I mean, that's why I think people fought so hard to have tenure, and that's a good thing about some of the union roles. Like when you play, you become a different unit, and I think it's the same as when you play in a string quartet or a Pierrot ensemble. You know exactly how long to wait for to play exactly with 32 of your violin colleagues, and you know the way time is going to be stretched, or so this is really good in my opinion, because then when somebody comes and has something special to say and wants to accomplish something of quality, then you're starting from the same square one. So I notice here it's all about a dynamic between the orchestra and the conductor. And oftentimes when there's the most buy-in and there's the most genuine presentation of differences, it gets the best results from the orchestra. Sometimes if it creates more insecurity and instability, the orchestra, by the time, at least the second, if not the first concert, the second concert, we just sort of revert and like stop trying to accomplish the thing that hasn't been successful in happening. Like there was someone who had a pretty bad first concert because it was so crazy. I mean, crazy to us. And the second concert, everybody just, it was weird. It was an unspoken thing and it just happened. We just sort of came back to it. But I mean, unless the principals are dialoguing with the sections and between sections about what do we, like, how are we going to approach change, or how are we going to react to very different stick techniques? You know, the default is sort of like whatever the music director, because that's the person with the authority, whatever they create for the ensemble or allow for the ensemble. So, you know, I love it. I love it because it just pushes the orchestra to be flexible and respond in a really present in the moment kind of way. But it doesn't always mean success. You know? Sometimes you take risks and it didn't work. But I mean, that makes me feel alive and human and not robotic and unimportant.
Yes, yes, great. So because and I have been working as an assistant of Ivan Fischer for the past 2 years with the Budapest Festival Orchestra.
Yes.
And he has his own way of working with the orchestra, which is fabulous because it's so unpredictable, no? So he has the musicians so attentive all the time, no?
How does he do that?
First of all, he starts all his rehearsals with Bach chorales, which that could be predictable, but of course you don't know which one you are going to play. but more than and then he has he always, for every program, at least the big programs, he has sectionals, strings, and then woodwinds and brass, just to go to make sure that the orchestra is in the best position in the moment that the full orchestra is together. But more than anything, I think for me, what makes it so incredible is that is the feeling, because it's a feeling, no, that he's creating everything in the moment, no. So it's not like something that, of course, he have thought about it. It's not like he's learning the music with the orchestra. Of course, it's not that. To the contrary, he has such an understanding of the piece that he can really make the orchestra feel that is being created at the moment, no?
Yeah.
And I think that also, of course, he has been with the orchestra for 35 years. So there is an agreement also, like confident, like a trust, you know, musical trust. Absolute, no?
So in the sectionals, is it always like, does it ever feel like a waste? Like
no.
Pointless? Or is there always there are always objectives inside of the sectionals?
Always his rehearsals are about music, always. So very rarely you hear him saying about playing short or long. Like he puts you in a context, no? It could be musical context or it could be historical. So it's very inspiring, actually. I have to say, I have learned so much by those experiences, no?
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is why I was so curious to know your perception about someone coming in being different, no? Because
I think as long as you, as a conductor, is respecting the time of the musician and what's already there, it's fine. I think sometimes conductors come in and use whole rehearsals for no reason, or are not telling us what's trying to be accomplished, and that is obviously, like, you know, whenever there's less buy-in, it's a problem. But when you actually feel palpably that something is being accomplished and something is being created that's better than at the beginning of the rehearsal, it's, you know, it's great. And so I just think that's what's very valuable.
Justin, we have been talking about the orchestra, and what are your dreams? Do you have dreams? Do you have projects coming up, or well, in this time it's so difficult to talk about this too, no?
It is difficult to talk about. I mean, I think the whole time off thing, although very difficult, was like for many people, including myself, super helpful to reassess and re-examine everything that we do and why we do it and the relevance or the meaningfulness of it, or all sorts of things. And I also found, so I also find like being proactive about something you believe in or want to accomplish, even if it's not inside, like, so at orchestra, I do what, you know, but outside of it, if I feel strongly about something, being proactive about trying to make it happen is super good for my insights and for my playing even. And sometimes the answer is no, or sometimes it's too complicated to even have happen. But sometimes wonderful things happen. And so I don't always feel like I pine away for something I can't do. If I know I can't do it, it's fine. But I do, my dream, if I'm here, is to continue increasing opportunities for the musicians to be self-motivated in creating projects, especially connected to Atlanta, and not necessarily the obvious places, but places that need it. But also, I just think it's good for our playing at work and outside of work. I spent a lot of time this summer, you know, I think a lot of violinists practice Bach, but I had always practiced Bach. Like that is like the thing, like in a happy week, like it just sort of gets me back to like, oh, that is the ugliest chord you've ever played, Justin. So let's just detox, let's focus, let's meditate a little bit. So I learned a lot of repertoire, solo violin repertoire that I've always wanted to learn, or it's on the outskirts of standard rep, and it was really, really nice. So and I played it a little bit, like in my hometown and on Zooms.
That's great. Yeah. I remember seeing a picture of it, I think in your Facebook page, about your violin being open.
Yeah.
What happened?
It was open. No, it was like a really wonderful story as well, because you know, I have an Italian violin that's very old, and it was like a really serendipitous way that I was able to acquire it. And it's like an Amati style. It's like an Amati model. So it's not a huge fiddle. It doesn't have a huge sound, but it's really warm and really special. And I've been having problems. I actually just thought it's because I'm getting old. Because I mean, honestly, I'm getting old. Like the way I could vibrate or play double stops was like way too much work, and I was never able to actually compete with colleagues in the orchestra sound-wise, volume-wise. And an acquaintance just recommended that I reach out to someone while I was in Colorado who lived there now, who used to do major restorations of like very damaged, very expensive fiddles and cellos. And you know, it was like one of those moments where it was like, oh my gosh, yep, this is exactly right. This person is knowledgeable and so competent and also very kind, which obviously goes a long way with me. And we just needed to just give it a major tune-up, a new bridge, new sound post, address some areas where the wood is weaker. And in the process, like when he opened one up, he noticed more things on the other side. So like you wanna come see this. And it was like really, it was weird how I felt so vulnerable and very emotional about it. Even though it's just this, I know it's a very old piece of wood, but it's wood. And but it was such a, I wouldn't have really had that conversation with my friend if we were still working and like slogging away, and it turned out to be like a great thing for the fiddle, like a brand new life on it.
So you have it back now?
Yeah, it was gone for like 10 days. It was
wow.
Very...
No, I when I saw the picture, I was like my heart was like, I could not even imagine what it would be to see my instrument completely opened, and probably it's like having a surgery, no? Like and then your and then your violin is back with the soul, no? It's like, oh no.
No, I felt very protective, like a parent, and made me want to take care of it, do my best to make special things happen, and just make it a good experience until it moves on to another player. It's like a really, it was very vulnerable. Patrick Carlin, who studied composition at Michigan recently, was like, yeah, there's like a study where it's one of the only inanimate objects that your mind perceives as an appendage are these stringed instruments.
Yeah, it's just well, we have 5 minutes before we finish, but it's just no, this I wonder if it happened to you, like then you probably appreciate even more the instrument, in the sense of the one who built it, no? It's like it's a piece of wood, but suddenly this piece of wood has life, no?
Yeah,
and then you are the one who creates the sound, no?
Yeah, I mean, we sit here and think all day about our sound, right? And we see these dots on lines and say, well, what is the trajectory of them? What is this art? What does it mean? Like, it's not just a abstract pitch. Like what? But like, I can't do that. I can't do that without intimately knowing, or none of us can, without intimately knowing our fiddles, and what they are capable of, and what they can respond to, and what they can't handle. You know, and it's not just like, you know, getting a general idea. I think it's really important. I think the specialness is like this unending process of time and time again, tweaking, changing, adjusting, until you find something that is like really stunning. Where the fireworks go off.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Justin, for sharing so many stories. No, the violin as being one of them.
Yeah.
Sabine Brettschneider says, "Hi, you two." She's just joining. Well, Justin, we're almost done with the time, and I just want to thank you so much for being here with us this morning. Like always say, it's for me so incredible, special to get to know each of you a little bit more, no?
Great.
In so many different ways, because music is the connector, but at the end we are all human beings first, and it's just incredible, inspiring to hear all of you sharing your life experiences, no, either through the music or through an instrument, or through our jobs, no, because everything is connected, no?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's been really fun actually listening to all these old friends talk to you as well.
So thank you everyone for being here with us this morning, and I hope you will join us every Sunday to get to know a little more about my colleagues and peers from the University of Michigan. So thank you everyone, and I will see you again next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.